Happy anniversary, Holy Trinity. I'm Father Rick Walling, blessed to be pastor here since 2007, so I'm in my 10th year. And happy also to share some memories of this wonderful parish. I'm from Dayton, so a lot of times I will be coming back, visiting family and friends from Dayton, and I try to spot the steeples of Holy Trinity from as far away as I can. So coming up north on 118, usually right around St. Henry, even at night, far in the distance, we're flat enough up here that I can see those steeples, or even over on 127, just north of Carthagena. And catching a glimpse of those steeples is a sign that I'm coming home, close to home. And it also reminds me of just the beautiful, stable, substantial church building that we've been blessed by our ancestors to worship in. The suspended arches inside the church, to me, are a reminder of heaven, of a space beyond space. I've been up to the attic once above the ceiling of the church, and I've noticed on some of the logs, some of the support logs, the bark still on them from when the builders first hewed them from the surrounding forests here. As a priest, I'm blessed to minister the sacraments. So for me, in my years here, the faith and the devotion with which people come up to Holy Communion is a blessing for me. I receive as much as I'm blessed to give. First communions, confirmations, baptisms, weddings, funerals. We've been blessed to have 2 first masses since I've been here, and we'll be having one this current year. Those sacraments are the bread and butter of our Catholic Christian faith, and those significant moments in people's lives, a tremendous blessing to be able to share with them. I am grateful for the priests that I've gotten to know and work with here at Holy Trinity. Father Wilker, my predecessor, laid a good foundation. Father Dan Schmidtmeyer, Father Barry Steckschulte, Father Mark Solner, Father Tim Ralston have been trusted and dependable co-workers. I'm proud of the physical improvements that have happened to the church building during my pastorate. A new set of front stairs, restored windows, and the entrance to the north parking lot with the elevator. I love being a priest. I love being a priest here at Holy Trinity, and I'm grateful for all the ways in which the Lord has blessed me through the people of Holy Trinity Parish.
I'm Father Ron Wilker. Perhaps you've noticed I don't have my clerical shirt on. That's because I'm in Florida taping this. In 1960, I graduated from Coldwater High School. Little did I know then that one day I would be ordained a priest. That happened in 1971. Little did I know then that one day I would return to Coldwater to be pastor of Holy Trinity Church. That took place in 1993. I stayed there in that position for 14 years until 2007. 14 years. Great years. I have wonderful memories of those years. I remember in 1995 when we renovated and painted the interior of the church. We air conditioned the church, and we redid the church basement. In those months, many months of renovation, we had morning mass in the church basement, and on the weekends we had mass amidst all of the scaffolding in church. It seemed like it took forever, but it was worth the wait. It's still very beautiful, I think. Many memories of great people, great staff, memories of 4 associate pastors, Father Emberger, Father Menabach, Father Dorn, and Father Schmidtmeyer. Memories of many happy times and some sad times, but in the midst of it all, the Lord was present there. I'm happy to say that I'm present and going to be back in the Coldwater cluster at Holy Trinity, helping out in the days to come, except when I'm in Florida. I shall see you in April.
Hi, I'm Beth Mathewson. My maiden name was Beth Stelzer, and I have been a member of the parish for my whole life. And so when I was thinking about my favorite memory, the thing that came to mind was when I got married. My husband and I got married in May of 2003, and at that time, we got married here at Holy Trinity. And at that time, Main Street was under major construction. And when we talk about major construction, there was no road. And it was like a 3-foot drop off the sidewalk. It was under major construction. We got married on a Friday. And I don't know how this totally did not come to my mind, but I never thought that they would be doing construction on Friday, the wedding day. But we got married at 4:30, and I think they stopped construction around 4:15, so it worked out perfect. But on your wedding day, so much is happening. You miss out on some of the details because so much is going on. And so about a month after we got married, we got our pictures back from Sandy Kaiser. And one of my favorite pictures in our wedding book was a picture of Father Wilker leaning against the steamroller. And Father Wilker is the priest that presided over our Mass. So I got the pictures and I was like, oh, so that was one of my favorite memories. And now, 13 years later, we have 4 children, and our kids love to go through our photo albums. They're always flipping through our photo albums. So one day, Sunday morning, we went to Mass, and we always sit in the front pew on Mary's side. It's just where we always sit. And so we're sitting there, and they're behaving, and all of a sudden, Mass started, and the priest started walking down the aisle. And my kids went into a tizzy. Mom, Dad, that's the priest that's on the steamroller. And I was like, yeah, that's Father Wilker. And I think he saw the uproar and he was waving to my children, but it was just fun. It's been such a good memory for me to see my kids growing up in the parish where I also grew up and making some great memories just like I did. So some of my best memories of the church.
Hello, my name's Paul Brugman. I've been a member of the parish my entire life, with the exception of probably around 8 years. In those years, I attended college, and the first several years after Jane and I were married, we lived away from Coldwater, so I've been a member my entire life. I'm going to go over a few of my early memories of church. I vaguely remember the remodeling of the church when they added on the east and west wings. I was probably only 5 or 6 years old at the time, but one funny memory I have is coming up here with my dad and picking up several statues and this grotto or cabinet type thing that he had purchased on the church's auction at the time. They had offered things to the parish members and he had purchased those. I remember coming up there, but I was very young at the time. I was a lucky one to be selected as one of the readers at my first Holy Communion. My last name beginning with B, of course, I was first up. I had to stand on this box of some sort to be able to adjust the microphone. I remember looking out over the crowd, which I thought was probably 1 million or so people at that time, being super nervous and almost to the point where I was shaking and falling off of the box. Of course, when it was all over, Mom and Dad, Grandpa and Grandma convinced me that I did a great job. And let's not forget, my favorite part of my youth here is the all-day servers picnic. It was they held it out at St. Charles. Got to play sports and games all day long, and a bonus is I didn't have to bail or do any of the farm chores that day, so that was always a fun day to look forward to. Probably the best and most recent memory I have of Holy Trinity is being able to share in my son Drew and my daughter-in-law Audrey's wedding this past September here at church, and Father Walling encouraging them to participating in distributing the Holy Communion. I just thought that was so special, watching them offer Jesus out to all their family and friends that day. So I'd like to thank you guys for inviting me to be part of the celebration, and that's concluding the memories that I have here.
My name is Mindy Garrison. I've been a member of Holy Trinity since I was baptized. Some of my special memories probably would be when I made my first communion in 2nd grade and getting married here by Father Ron. I've also had some very memorable teachers, religion teachers, Mary Wasty in 2nd grade, and Mary Huntingford, Betty Hamburg, Norma Wormert, Joe Knapschafer. They all made it very fun for us, but also meaningful, and were great role models for us.
Hi, I'm Janet Geisey Gauss, and I was born and raised here in Coldwater to Elmer and Butch Geisey, and I went to the Coldwater School, was taught the Catholic faith, and about 50 plus years ago, I went over to St. Henry and I found this man, Ralph Gauss, and I brought him back to Coldwater, and here's where we decided to raise our family. We had 2 children. We have 2 children. Tony, who married Dave Klosterman, and they have 3 children, and Scott, who married Becky Swearinger, and they have 3 children. And since then, we've been very busy with the church and with various committees and what have you. And Ralph, what have you been active in?
Well, we have both been very active in the parish. Janet with her the choir, which I believe probably 50-year member.
Absolutely.
Pretty close to it. And Janet is the pro-life coordinator in the parish, and I guess my big thing is working with the Columbian Squires, a youth group sponsored by the Knights of Columbus. And
how many
both
years have you been doing the Squires?
I think since 1976. But I'm not real positive about that. Anyway, the things that we do in the parish, we tend to do together. I'm involved with her with the pro-life movement, and she is more than involved with the work that I do with the Knights and the Squires. She also does many things in the parish with helping with the altar cloths in the church, cleaning and things like that. And also, we tend to do things as a family. This is what we enjoy doing in Holy Trinity Parish. There are many things that the family can get involved in.
That sounded good. So, we've got tons of Waffle stories that would crack you up.
I would say, and this is no stretch, if you're 55 years old, living in Coldwater, Ohio, we had probably a hand in that waffle somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I do have a favorite waffle story, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time or not, but I think it might be. You guys know, and I'm not going to mention his name, but his initials are Tim Busher. And Tim, we were making waffle batter over at the old West Elementary School.
So Tim would have been in high school?
Yes,
Yes.
he was a member of the Columbian Squires, and all of a sudden, if you can imagine this 10-gallon vat of waffle batter, on the top of it, it has little bubbles. Tim says, "Oh my gosh, I lost my contact. My contact's in there."
And we all stopped.
We stopped the thing, and I grabbed a sieve and started, and of course I couldn't see him standing behind me cracking up. He didn't lose his contact, but he sure had us looking for it. And not only is that my favorite waffle story, it's Tim's too.
As a matter of fact, when we said we were going to have the video, he says, "Oh, Ralph, are you going to tell our story?"
No, I'm not telling.
No, he's not going to tell it. You forgot to mention that those same kids that used to sell and make the waffles are now coming back saying, "Hey, we'll work a shift. We'll take over."
Yeah, they're the parents now. So
Yeah, they're the parents.
you know, we grew up kind of in the age where I guess maybe we weren't even too sure. We knew we went to church. Remember, we were Latin Mass kids, so yeah, we probably didn't understand a lot of and serving Mass and the.
Yeah, you can tell that story.
Oh no, I can't. Some of them.
Just did what you were told, right?
Yeah. Oh yes, yes. But the Latin, the Confiteor, it was always and I'm sure this isn't going to be. Alex is gone, but it was always Confiteor Deo Nipotenti Beati Maria. Then you'd go into mumble mode because you didn't remember all the words. Now well, I'm not too concerned because I know there are some things. Is this the cutting room floor? Probably the whole darn interview is going to be.
Your life is in our hands
Yeah.
right here, buddy. We'll be looking at this later. Well, this is my aunt and uncle.
Yeah. Cut. Cut.
So I'm McKenna Gels, and I've been part of the parish for 16 years. Memory that sticks out the most is when Father Leo came to speak to us. That spoke to me a lot more than usually does. It just felt that he actually told stories to make the Bible feel a little more lifelike instead of just stories out of a book. Just the way that he spoke really stuck with me.
I'm Joan Wenning Gillen. I've been a member of Holy Trinity all my life. I've got 5 children, 4 boys and a girl. I grew up on a farm of 16 siblings, and a lot of my memories were coming to church, always filling up that first pew. You know, we walk in, we had to fill up the first pew, and then once that pew was filled with the siblings, we went to the second pew. And we always knew we had to behave because Father Leibel was sitting right in front of us. You know, you had to behave because he was looking at you. Some other memories I have when I was in 8th grade, I was chosen to crown Mary. I don't know if that was because I was the tallest in the class or what, but I was chosen to crown Mary. Some other memories of Holy Trinity right now of my own sibling and my own children, their baptisms and special moments that I think carried when I was younger, going to church with my siblings is, I love it when all my kids come home and go to church. To go to church as a family, it's just so proud, you know? And some other things we talked about were kind of memorable was, you know, going to confession. Father Leibel was just, you know, you always knew that when you went into confession with Father Leibel, it was 5 Hail Marys and 5 Our Fathers. So sometimes you cheated and you had some of that done before you went into confession, because then you know you were done. You know, you could get out faster.
We are Ron and Brenda Wellman. We have been a member of this parish for 30 years. We started our lives here together. We have 4 children. My first memory of being a member of the parish was the ministry of mothers sharing moms. It was a great way for me to get out and meet other mothers and to share our faith.
And I've been involved with various ministries, but the one that I've had the most involvement with was the Knights of Columbus. I was Grand Knight back in 2010. And one of the amazing things you walk away with after you lead an organization like that is just knowing that the council and the community at large is just full of dedicated men and women who are just engaged, ready to help in whatever way they can. We're thrilled to have been able to raise our 4 children in this community, and really to be a part of a community that has such great men and women who are just wonderful to be around. And the volunteering, people do this just out of the goodness of their hearts, and it's just a neat thing.
Well, I'm Ross Wellman, and this is my wife, Krista.
We've been members of the parish for our entire lives, and we feel very blessed to be a part of such a loving church community.
Yeah, we've made all of our sacraments here. Most recently, 2015, when we got married. We look forward to raising our kids in a loving parish and watching them make their sacraments in the same church that we did.
We've been together since high school, so we often attended youth group meetings together. We attended church together often with each other's families as well. When we went to separate colleges, we would attend different churches for Sunday Mass, but it was always meaningful to come back to our home parish, and that really meant a lot to us to be able to come back and come to church here.
And since we've been married, it's only been a handful of weekends or Sundays that we weren't able to attend Mass together, so that's something we cherish and look forward to doing the rest of our lives together.
I'm Beth Thomas. I am married to
Eric Thomas, and I've been a member of Holy Trinity Church since I was born. Some of the memories I have growing up was the being involved in the Columbian Squires. It's a great organization run by Ralph Gels, who does a super job with that group.
Did you start that in high school already?
Yeah,
Okay.
in high school as a freshman, and then by the time I was a senior, I was the chief squire, but I also was the first Coldwater resident that was a state officer in the Columbian Squire. So I did that for 2 years as a junior and senior in high school, and so a lot of fun memories of going to state conventions and things like that.
I've been a member 30-some years once we got married and settled in Coldwater. It's been a great place to raise kids and be a member of. It was, I've got so many good memories with raising 3 kids here, and I've gone through baptism, first communions, confirmations. We have 3 kids of our own. They're now grown, but it's been a very good blessing to be able to raise the kids and grow with them in their faith in Coldwater Holy Trinity. It's just been really, I can't really say we've had a bad or a downtime at all. It's always been very pleasant, positive. Our kids are grown.
Yeah, just recently our son was married here in Holy Trinity Church, and as weddings usually are, it was a beautiful day and a fabulous ceremony. So Father Walling did a great job with the Mass and all the way through the reception, and so we just feel like we've been blessed to be able to live here in Coldwater and attend Holy Trinity Church.
I guess being here as long as we have, we've met so many good people along the way, which just makes it that much more special.
Yeah.
And
yeah, all our kids stay in touch with their friends from here, so even though they do not live back in Coldwater, they still have that connection, and it's neat to see that.
It's just good to go and see smiling faces and familiar people and good people willing to do anything for you and always wanting to help out in any way we can. One thing, though, we've started doing this past year was cleaning the church in September. That was actually a good thing. We did that. We started doing that with some friends, and it just got to be, we go and clean the church and have a conversation and just enjoy, feel good about it.
Kind of a fun time, isn't it?
Yeah, fun time, and feel good about helping out in that way too. We're a focus couple. Father Ron, I think it was the one who asked us to be focus couples, and got to meet a lot of young couples, new kids, and kids that I taught as 6th graders. Thinking, oh, now they're grown up and they're married.
Right.
That's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yes, and how fast that happened. Kind of stop and look and think, wait a second, you were the little kid with the braces and glasses, and now you're gorgeous and grown up and getting married.
We are Bob and Joy Post. We lived in Coldwater for 47 years. We both graduated from Coldwater High School. Joey went to St. Anthony grade school. I went to St. Peter grade school. Some of the memories I'd like to share. When I was a freshman, sophomore, and junior at school here, and we had religion on Thursday mornings. Occasionally, we came to Holy Trinity Church, and Father taught us. One other memory, October 12th, 1958. Coldwater was the host to the Holy Name Rally. It was the Cincinnati Archdiocese. Carl J. Alter was the Archbishop at that time. And men from all the local parishes came and gathered here in Coldwater on the streets, and we marched to the football field. One of the things that really jumped out at me during the ceremony, there was a lot of whispers going on and so on. 2 young men from Coldwater Parish perished outside of our city limits. And from that, I'll pass on to Joey.
Hi. One of my memories that I have is when we went to church. All of us ladies, we had to wear either a hat or a scarf on our heads, and we had to wear skirts or dresses. No pants or jeans were allowed. And when we would come to church, as soon as you entered that door, you were to remain silent. You did not talk to any of the people around you or greet them or anything. You just went in church. And the Mass, it was all in Latin. The songs were in Latin, and the prayers were in Latin. We had a low Mass, which was usually the first Mass in the morning, and it had no singing. And the High Mass, which was usually the later Mass, it had songs. And I remember going to communion. We had to fast from 12 o'clock midnight of the night before. And if you went to the 12 o'clock Mass or the late Mass, you got pretty hungry and pretty thirsty by that time. I made my first communion when I was a second grader, and I was confirmed when I was a third grader. And then when I was an eighth grader, we had a solemn communion. Not all parishes had solemn communions, but we still wore white dresses and veils. I guess it's an old German custom that came over with the Germans. The other thing I remember is in the early 80s, the fuel cost was getting quite expensive to heat the church, and so we blocked off or partitioned off the east wing, and during the week we had the Mass over there. Well, our son Troy was a Mass server at that time, and he remembers serving in the east wing. And my last memory I have is of the special Mass we had on September the 11th in the evening. After such a terrible day, everybody was upset, worried. It was such a grateful feeling to go to church and pray and feel safe and just feel good. So that's my memories.
I've been a member probably 85 years. I did not live here about 4 years when we were married. Tommy was in the service. But otherwise, this has been my parish and home parish. And a lot of good memories, a lot of good memories. But like I was telling you about the children's Mass on Sundays, we all sat in the body. We only had the body, didn't have the wings at that time. And it filled the church with just children. You started out in the first grade in the front pews, and each year you got to move a little bit farther to the back. And by the time you were in the 8th grade, you had the prime seats in the back, and you got to lead and the responses and the prayers, which was, big deal back then. But during the week, we did go to Mass. We had Mass every day before school started. And we all went to communion, brought fried egg sandwiches, and we put them on the radiators in our room, so that when you came back from church, you got to eat that fried egg sandwich, and the room smelled like fried eggs, so you can imagine what that smelled like.
But you had a nice warm sandwich that way.
And it was good. It was the best sandwich in the world. And back then you had pew rent. So the parents paid for two seats for them, and the kids were not to go to the Mass,
That's so interesting.
And I think we had 4 Masses, so you got 2 at 2 different Masses. And lo and behold, you don't go in somebody else's pew. Oh yeah, closest to the door, the higher the price. And for some reason, the back ones were really high priced.
You could take a little nap.
Yeah.
I remember a great
Well, you could leave early.
There you go. Absolutely.
Well, I was a nurse on the night shift, and we would have something like 25 or more patients go to communion. A priest from the seminary came over and said Mass for the nuns. We had a little chapel, had a chapel and everything in the hospital at that time. And he'd say Mass, and then he would do communion, and we had to get the patients ready for communion. They had to be washed and covered up with a sheet. And of course, you didn't eat or drink or anything from midnight on. And so then he would do communion to all the patients, and then he would have his breakfast and go back to the seminary. So it was a very good service for patients in the hospital. And anybody that was ambulatory could go to that 6 o'clock Mass, but most of the time it was just for the nuns.
My name's Larry Wolf. I was baptized here, and I've been a member of the parish my whole life. And I have a lot of fond memories of what went on in the building that we now call the Father Yalf Center. That's where I spent 7 of my 8 elementary years. And at that time, we had a staff of all precious blood sisters. So I had a nun all 7 years. And one of my favorite stories I remember in 7th grade, we had a very young nun named Sister Alice. And she was funny. She played softball with us at recess, and everybody liked Sister Alice. But Sister had a rule that she wanted no ball gloves in the classroom. We had those benches with you could put something beside you, and she said, those ball gloves belong out in the hall on the coat rack. I don't want to see them in the room. So one warm day when the windows were open, and of course then we had no screens on the windows, but Sister Alice walked around and she spotted a ball glove on somebody's seat. She didn't say anything. She just walked over and took that ball glove and threw it out the window. Well, we all thought that's pretty funny, and none ever did anything like that. And about a minute later, our Sister Alacoque, who was our no-nonsense principal, came to the door. And she said, Sister Alice, I don't know what's going on in here, but I was walking outside and this ball glove came flying out the window and nearly hit me. Well, poor Sister Alice. She was so embarrassed, and we laughed so hard. But when it was all over, I think we felt so bad for her, knowing that she probably was in big trouble with her superior. And so, but it was good. It was a funny story. And I think at this time we have, we're celebrating 150 years, that we should acknowledge the sisters who taught here for 75 years or more, did a wonderful job. And I think it's time we can't thank the sisters personally, but I think we can thank God for the sisters and for the work they did here, and the dedicated service they provided our parish for all those years, so long ago. Yes, we went to Holy Communion on certain days, and in those days the fast was midnight, so you had to pack your lunch or your breakfast, and everybody, it was always like egg sandwiches and Hostess Twinkies. That was the standard breakfast, you know. And we'd sit there eating while Sister was doing the Bible stories or whatever. But that was always a fun breakfast. It started out as a Catholic school in 1913 when the sisters first came here. And I think for like 30 years or so, it was a parish school, a Catholic school. And then it became a public school, but the nuns continued to teach here. And I mean, they were certified teachers. And so for a long time, while I was in school, it was a public school, but we had sisters the whole time. I think they taught us a lot, but I think they taught us how to live more than anything else. And that might have had something to do with my choice, I don't know.
Well, I'm Craig Groos. And I'm Jeremy Groos, and I've been, part of the parish since I was 16, and I've been part of the parish my entire life, so like 18 years, so. Yeah. One of the most memorable moments I've had for the parish was playing on Christmas Mass for the brass choir. I was playing bass trombone, and it was just a lot of excitement for me to do for the church, so. My favorite memory is probably with the youth group. They hold a lock-in every year. And I just like it because me and all my friends stay up all night playing games, and we always get really tired in the morning. So, well, they do a lot of like different activities throughout the year. Like I know one of them I help with is Rake and Run, where it's like during the fall, at the time when most of the leaves fall, they just go out to different houses and they rake up the leaves for people who can't normally do it for themselves. They do something called Midnight Magi, where they bake cookies and they give it to people who are on like third shift. So they just do that, and they do a whole bunch of other activities and some summer ones that are like camp outs. They do something called Fall Fest, where they just go out to the Fulton Camps Pond and they just kind of hang out there for a day. So that's some of the things they do. And then like every Sunday from like 7:30 to 9, they get together and they just kind of learn, I guess. Well, our parents are a model with our faith by kind of like, well, one, just kind of introducing us to it. And when we were younger, we'd always have like questions and they'd always be willing to answer. And then as we just kind of grew more and more, they still introduced more and more aspects of it and showed us why it's important to do it, like trying to live
They
our
helped us
faith.
understand it a lot better from when we were little kids until now. They want us to hold a strong faith as we get older and go out into the world by ourselves. They still want us to have a strong faith and keep trusting God, so.
Yeah, because I know our dad listens to Radio Maria radio station a lot.
He listens to Radio Maria a lot, so that's like his favorite radio station.
Who, me or Dad?
Both of you.
Well, my plans for college are I'm going to Franciscan University of Steubenville, which is like on the other side of Ohio, and I'm planning on going into the priestly discernment program because I just feel like that's what God's calling me to do. And I know with that they major in philosophy, minor in theology, and then after Steubenville I plan on going to the seminary in Cincinnati and studying there.
And my future plans, well, I'd like to join the Navy or the Army, and well, I'm not quite for sure what I want to do yet between welding and special forces or dog handling. I don't know. It's just a lot of opportunities there, and still debating if I want to make the military life a lifetime or just do it for limited amount of years and come back and have a normal job like my dad did, so.
My name is Jackie Holman. I was Jackie Layfeld. My parents are Gary and Vicki Layfeld, and I've been a part of Holy Trinity now for 37 years. Probably my most fondest memory is my first communion. I was actually able to read at First Communion, which was a little scary for a second grader, but I was really excited because I got to sit in the front row and I got to watch everybody make their first communion, which was really cool for me. And that kind of started me into the different ministries in church. I lectured in high school, joined various choirs and things. And other memories, of course, my wedding. Who wouldn't have a memory of their wedding? But also other family and friends getting married here at the church, my son's baptism. But then just a few weeks ago, we were able to witness the 4- and 5-year-old Christmas programs. And my son said, who's 3, "Mommy, when do I get to do that?" And so for me, it's Holy Trinity isn't just about the past, but also what's coming in the future with my 3-year-old and one on the way in the spring. So kind of connecting both of them. So that's kind of what I think of Holy Trinity.
Hello, I am Ivo Schmidt, and I've been in the parish for 80 years. I was born in 1936, about 2 blocks from the church. Shortly later after, we moved to the country, to 2 miles. From there, my dad, he became an usher for the 6:30 Mass on Sunday mornings. So that meant all 7 of us had to get up early and get ready for the 6:30 Mass. Once we got to the church, Father would stand and look at the altar, not facing us. And also he spoke everything in Latin, so we didn't know what was going on. So we had the first 2 pews in church was for the kids, and the sisters sit right behind us in the 3rd seat. And if we act up or got in trouble in church, they would tap us on our shoulder and next morning, Sunday morning or Monday morning when we went to school, they would tell us what we did wrong.
My name is Joanne Stogler, and I have been a member of Holy Trinity Catholic Church for 93 years, and I hope I can continue for a number of years.
And tell us when your birthday was.
And my birthday is December 25th. I was born in 1923. I made my first communion in 1931, and I was the first girl to receive communion because I was so small.
First in line.
So, and then I played the organ in church for 38 years, and sang the Mass. The Mass was at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I had to get up early. My sister and I, we decided we might like to sing the Mass. I didn't play the organ, but we thought we could sing. So we asked Father Yals, and he said fine, but he wanted us to sit on the first pew on the right in front on the west side, so he could hear us to see if it was okay that we could go to the choir loft. So after a few singings, he said it was okay. So then we went to the choir loft, and I sang. And that was it was in 1949. So Frank Huber was the organist, and he thought maybe I liked to play the organ. So I started to play the organ then.
Had you had lessons before, or he
No
taught you?
lessons.
Oh, good.
So I was pretty well glad that I could do that. When I retired, I was playing the organ, and after communion, Denny Brackman, he was our organist, and he said that they wanted me to come down to the front, and Father was going to present me with a plaque, that was the last that I would have to play. So Jim and Pat Large, they made this plaque for me. So I was really pleased with that, and I still hang it on the wall. So that is my story. This is a picture I received when I made my first communion. We all got a picture of this. So after I got home, well, later on, I put it in this frame, and it's been there ever since.
That's a beautiful picture.
I just have it on a stand, you know. So I'm real proud of that, too.
Why, I'm Bob Garkey, and this is my wife Lois, and we lived at Coldwater for 50 years, and we are the proud parents of 4 children and 11 grandchildren, and now I'll put it over to my wife.
One of our special memories here at the Holy Trinity Parish was celebrating our 50th anniversary. Father Walling helped us celebrate our Mass by having a Mass of Thanksgiving in July. On October the 16th, there was a Mass for the cluster of Holy Trinity Parish, and following that, there was a breakfast sponsored by the parish and served by the St. Anne's Sodality. Lots of visiting followed, and it was very, very nice. That was for all the members of the parish that had special 50th, 25th, whatever, and anything over 50 they celebrated. And then we all received a nice keepsake from Archbishop Daniel Schnurr signed it. So we thought that was a very special thing for everyone, and it held a special spot in our hearts.
And we really enjoy this area. A lot of good neighbors. We're so blessed to be living in Coldwater, and hope everything goes good in the future.
Okay, my name is Harold Hilsman, and my family moved to Coldwater in the fall of 1942.
In 42.
Right. And I was a sophomore in Coldwater High School. I graduated in 1945, and I spent 18 months in the military service. Eventually, I had a trip to Berlin, Germany, for my duties. And eventually, as I come home around January 1947, it was started the Holy Trinity Church, and eventually I joined the choir, men's choir, which I was a member for over 30 years. And in 1953, I got married to a local girl, Audrey Schulze. We had 6 kids, 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. And for many years, most of the time, our family went together in church at 9 o'clock Mass on Sundays. And I was a life member of KC, and all my boys were servers in Mass. And that's about all I remember.
My name is Michelle Walker. I have been a member of the parish for about 25 years, probably ever since I was born, when I was baptized. One of my special memories that I have is always going to Christmas Eve Mass when Father Ron was here. I always loved it when he always had the kids. He would start telling the gospel, and then he would stop and invite all of us kids to come down. And he always had the helpers give us like little, whether it was a star or a sheep or a shepherd or an angel. And so during he would start telling, he would always tell the gospel in a kid-friendly form so we could understand it. And anytime he says, all right, where are my sheep? So you have a bunch of sheep everywhere. And as he kept telling it, it was just always nice that he kept interacting with us. And for the longest time, every time they would sing, O Little Town of Bethlehem, every time they'd stop and they'd bang on the door, I did not know where the bang was coming from. And then I realized a couple years later when I got older that it was one of the ushers always doing it. I don't know where I thought it was coming from. So then at the end, when he was done, he would give us a special message to tell our parents, and we would go back up, and it was always cute. Even when I got older, when the kids kept doing it, they'd go up and tell their parents what the special message was, and we always still tried to listen to what they had, what the special message was. And also when I was a freshman in high school, my brother and I both served Father Ron's last Christmas Eve Mass. So it's like, I got to see it from when I was a little kid and then being behind the scenes of everything. So that's probably one of my special memories of Holy Trinity.
My name is Gladys Keese. Ernie and I have belonged to Holy Trinity Parish since 1957. As we joined Holy Trinity Parish, they were in need of ushers for the 7:30 Mass. So they asked Ernie if he would usher the 7:30 Mass. So he did that for about 12 years. Then he decided it was time that he would go to Mass with me and the children. In 1974, I was a member of the St. Anne's Sodality, and I became vice president of the St. Anne's Sodality. In 1975, I was president of the St. Anne's Sodality. At that time, we had a migrant thrift shop that we were supposed to be in charge of. At that time, we had parishioners that we asked to bring in bedding, toys, clothing, and different things. We would sort it and price it. We labeled, in 1975, we labeled 5,000 items. In 1976, we labeled 3,000 items. And then we had other parishioners from other parish that donated blankets. They would piece blankets together, and then they would get the batting, put the batting between it, and then they'd put the backing on it. And then they were brought to the church basement or I went to pick them up. We had 100 large blankets and about 40 small blankets. And the St. Anne's Fidelity took different afternoons that we knotted the blankets. We would knot about 20 per day. And we had 100 large and 40 small ones. And this was all taken over to the old Layfelt building, which was located now where our new gymnasium has been built. The migrant shop was open from the mid-August till the season was over. We were open on Fridays and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. These are just some of the activities that I did in our 60-some years with Holy Trinity.
My name is Carl Benninger. I've been in the parish for 82 years, and I had a lot of different experiences in my life. My first communion was when I was a second grader, confirmation when I was a sixth grader, seventh grader, I ain't sure, but that area. And through the years, I was a server for funeral masses for 20-some years, and I was a communion distributor for 25 years or better. And I remember the sister's house east of the grade school. My mother-in-law happened to do the washing of the clothes for the nuns, and later on I married her daughter, so that's... We were young, Mom and Dad. They went to church, they paid pew rent for them. But as kids, the younger kids went to the east side was the boys, and the west side was the girls. Like when the parents bring their kids to church now. And when we were kids, we had to be dressed up to go to church, because my brothers, when they were in service, come back, if he didn't wear a tie to church, turn the car around and go back and get one. I only had one or two ties, but you wouldn't be dressed up nice when you go to church. Now it's like I have jeans on, it's 90% jeans, and I've been a KSC member for about 64 years.
I'm Charmaine Bettinger. I have been a member of Holy Trinity Parish all of my life, except for the 6 years that I was living out of state. Most of my memories of the parish are with my family, getting up and going to church 9 o'clock every Sunday morning, sitting in the third pew on the Blessed Virgin Mary side, because that's where my dad sat, that's where we're gonna sit. Every once in a while I'd get lucky and get to go with Grandma on Saturday night, and that's when we had 7:30 Mass on Saturday nights. So I'd get to go with her. We also, I can remember memories as a kid being in school when they had Mass after school, especially during Advent and Lent. And so once a week, I would go over to Grandma's house and we would go to Mass. And then we'd walk across the street and go to Betty's and eat. So it was nice, faith and family. I got to spend a lot of time with Grandma during those times. Other memories of Mass in the church were definitely the guitar Mass led by Earl Klosterman. To this day, if somebody plays Amen with the guitar, I hear his voice in my head saying, "Sing it over." And I can't get it out of my head. The children's masses with Father Sager. You know, it was always so neat to go up after church and get a treat at Christmas and Easter time. And you never knew what Father Sager was gonna say. He had a way of engaging the kids in Mass, so those were definitely fond memories. Probably my most personal was my first communion, which was 41 years ago, January 18th. Back then you could make it on your own as well as with the class. And so I did, and actually Kim Tangeman and Scott Bills made it with me that day. Sister Mary Jane asked me to actually be one of the readers though for our class, First Communion. And I still have the reading. Don't ask me to read it. I can tell you it's from the book of Exodus. So that was pretty important to me because I've kept it all these years. I think it's the first time somebody actually thought I could stand in front of people and speak. So I remember being nervous, but I think I did okay. So I'm so honored to be a part of this parish. It is the cornerstone of my faith all my life. I'm honored to be a part of the staff now. And I'm just grateful to God that I'm here, and I say happy 150th to Holy Trinity.
I am Mary Honeyford. I'm married to Paul Honeyford for 58 years, and we have 6 sons. We moved to Coldwater in 1966. Paul and I were born in Ottoville, Ohio, where we were baptized and received most of the sacraments and where we were married. Our first 2 sons were born in Ottoville. Paul's job was in Swanton, Ohio, where we had 3 more sons, and then Paul changed jobs and we moved to Coldwater. The 6th son was added to our family, and they all attended Coldwater schools. When they grew up, all but one of our sons moved away. I taught CCD for over 35 years, most of those years at a 6th grade level. Our topic was the Bible. I was the first woman who served on Holy Trinity Parish Council. It was a 2-year term, and I was the Parish Council President 1 year. The one thing I regret while serving on the council is not buying the property, El Pax office building and Knapp's Carryout, because we bought it, they thought it was too expensive at $65,000. Father Leibold was our pastor, and he wanted to purchase the property, but the council voted against it, and he didn't rule us, which I thought was pretty good. So when the mill property became available, I did what I could to let the council know how I felt, that Holy Trinity should purchase it, in hoping that the council would not make the same mistake that we did. Using my sewing skills, I have made many of the purificators, as well as the banners, which Nick Wenning drew up, using his artistic talents. I made some priest vestments, the ones the Altar Society gave to the newly ordained priests from our parish. Served as one of the head cooks for funerals when we changed how we did the funerals, and had the pleasure of working with many groups that make up the funeral volunteers. For many years, I served as Social Action, one of the committees that make up the church council. Started the Ash Wednesday Soup Supper as part of the Catholic Relief Service Rice Bowl. What I considered one of life's greatest experiences, in 2004, I had the experience of traveling to Guatemala with the Cincinnati Arch Mission Director, along with Father Ron Wilker. Sister Ruth Kramer, Helen Vagadis, and myself had been, Helen had been sending mission money collected by the CCD students to support people from our parish who worked in the missions. After that trip, we committed as a parish to be a sister parish to where Sister Oppenheim worked. Father Jose started a trade school teaching young people. The parents would send the children out to work instead of going to school. We as a parish are helping to support this school by paying for the teachers, because the parents felt it wasn't, it would be better if they went out and earned money as to pay for teachers. I hope is that somebody hearing this would be interested in visiting our sister parish on a mission trip.
Hello, we are Skeet and Woody Walters, and we've been members of the Holy Trinity Parish for 56 years. And Woody has lived in Coldwater all of his life, and I am a transport from Immaculate Conception in Salina.
Like she said, I've been here all my life, and I was a mass server, I'd say from the 4th grade, somewhere in the 4th grade on through my senior year in high school. And Father Yaus was a pastor that whole time. And kind of had a unique experience in the second grade. Back then, I think the bishop came around every 5-6 years or something like that for confirmation. It just so happened that they came when I was in the second grade. It's also when you make your first communion. So, and it happened on the same day. Made my first communion on May the 5th, 1946 in the morning, and sacrament of confirmation in the afternoon.
So in contrast with Woody's first communion, I think our children's first communion was a little different. In the 1970s, it would be a family celebration. We went as a family, they received communion. And Mom on one side, Dad on the other, and it was just a family gathering. It was kind of neat the way we did it. And then in the spring, they would also have a group first communion too. So not everybody maybe did the individual, but it was neat. I kind of enjoyed that. Yes, that was good. Yeah. So I remember when we had the seniors come into our home, and maybe about 5 seniors. And to this day, these kids, they're grown and even have grandchildren. But there's a bond made after you met with them for so many times in your home. Didn't you think? A very special personal bond.
Still call me Mr. Walter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And they came into your home just like several
For senior religion. Yeah, the religion was in the home instead of...
yeah, the seniors. And the kids that were running around, they were young at the time, and gave them an idea what home life was, I guess, or what we had going anyway at our house.
I'm Mary Sauer, and although I wasn't born in Coldwater, I've lived here almost all my life. When you gave me the different memories that I could talk about, each one of them seemed to be very special. My first communion, confirmation, our daughter Mary Beth's wedding, and then even Jim's funeral, which has been the last one. Each one of these naturally was so very special to me, but they mainly were because our whole Holy Trinity Parish was there for me. Everybody seemed to be with me, and that meant so much. Jim and I started school, elementary school, went 8 grades together, and we had a lot of wonderful memories there, starting with our first grade teacher, Sister Verena, all the way to Sister Mary Alcock, our 8th grade teacher. And they were very dedicated women. They really tried hard to be sure that we were going to be good Christians. The one nun that stood out in my mind was Sister Mary Iona. She was our 4th grade teacher, and she was only in our school system just 1 year, but we were lucky enough to get her that 1 year. And she instilled in us so many different things. She was smart, and she taught us to be kind to each other, to read, to appreciate art, and just to be happy. I really admired her. And then she left the Coldwater. She was only here the 1 year. Years later, she came back to Marion and taught CCD, and Jim and I renewed our friendship with her, and we're friends with her until she died. There's so many things I can talk about within our school system that when we were there. Our religion classes before school, and the fact that we didn't go to Mass every morning because you had to fast in those days. You could not eat or drink. So there would be certain days designated to go to Mass and to go to Holy Communion. And on those days were special because then we could bring our fried egg sandwich, which we wrapped in foil and we put on the radiator to keep warm. And as soon as Mass was over, oh boy, that egg sandwich really tasted good. Another thing that we had was Father Yaus coming in to visit us. Father Yaus was a stern man, but he was a kind man, and I could tell he was kind. He enjoyed visiting with the children, and he was an important person. I think he was so important, it wasn't just to us kids, it was to the whole town. So many people seemed to really feel that Father Yaus was as important as the mayor. The one thing that he did, he picked out all the movies that we saw at the Columbia Theater. Not a movie came into Coldwater unless Father Yaus had picked on it and decided that it was good enough for us to see. Another memory that stands out is my brother, Father Paul, when he was ordained a priest in 1956. That was naturally so important to our family, but I really believe it was important to the whole community. I think the Holy Trinity Parish were so proud to have a young boy of their church be ordained a priest. Now, even though Jim and I weren't married in Coldwater, we were married at a Franciscan monastery, we did raise all 6 of our children here in Coldwater. And I think that at that point, there weren't as many nuns teaching in the school. And for a while, I sort of worried about the CCD program, but I needn't have worried. I think that our children received an excellent education due to the fact that we had so many dedicated parishioners who gave of their time to teach CCD to our kids. And I think they did a wonderful job. Jim and I taught CCD ourselves for many years, and we found it very rewarding. And now the time has come, I'm alone, and everybody's suggesting, well, now you got to move closer to your children, you got to be closer to them. But having lived here all these years, to me, I've found something here in Holy Trinity, and I know that I can get up and I can go to daily Mass, and I'll find someone to talk to, and I'll find someone to pray with. And that's the most important thing for me.
All right, well, hi, I'm Ellie Follenkamp. I've been in the parish my whole life. I've been here for 19 years. I'm a lifer. I had my my first communion here, my baptism, and my confirmation. But I think what was the most formative for me, like coming out of Holy Trinity, was being involved in the youth group. My family's very involved. Like my dad is a Knights of Columbus volunteer, my mom volunteers, and we go to church every Sunday, and I grew up doing that. But for me, like that wasn't super personal and like, you know, meaningful in my own life in terms of like my own spirituality until I started to go to youth group. Youth group made coming to church every Sunday worthwhile and meaningful. I was in the generation of youth group where I had Christy, now Evers, and also Amy Hess. And so I got all of these different experiences, having like different people leading it. And I went to Steubenville conferences and just all sorts of stuff and they were all, everything that I did there kind of taught me to take my faith more seriously and make it personal, and authenticity was a buzzword. Like to have a faith and call yourself Catholic, but then like, what do you do with that? Like how do you live that out? And I guess in youth group, I just learned how to live that out. And yeah, I mean, that authenticity though, that genuineness that I learned to cultivate within myself in youth group is something that it carries with me. That's something that I'm always gonna have with me. I don't know if I'll ever move back to Coldwater. I'm a second year student at Bowling Green. I'm studying education. But Holy Trinity, and especially the youth group experience I had, is always gonna be with me. It's always gonna carry me wherever I go, so.
I'm Austin Reithman. I'm from Coldwater. I've been in the parish since I was baptized in 2001. I'm 16 years of age, and one of my favorite memories was my first communion. It was just great being around all my fellow classmates and having them all right there and all knowing that we're part of the parish together. I served when I was in 7th grade, started serving. I still serve.
Did you get confirmed yet?
No.
Not yet. You looking forward to it?
Yeah, I am.
Are you studying it now, or is it?
Yes, we are. I'm in religion right now, and we're going over a lot of stuff. It's pretty big in the head right now. Big thing coming ahead. Just having knowing that there's my role in the parish instead of my parents putting me to church. I know it's on my part now.
My name is Natalie Will. I'm 24 years old, and I've been a member of Holy Trinity Parish since I was born. One of the great things is living in this community is I've been a member since I was born, received all my sacraments at this church, and now I can pass it on to my daughter and my husband as well, as we're members. It's been great being active in the church as a Eucharistic minister, and probably my favorite as a religion teacher. I taught 2nd grade, and they're so much fun, so full of life, and the questions they ask you just really revives your faith and gives you hope for tomorrow.
I wonder how you feel on the day of their first Holy Communion.
It's almost like a little bit of a spiritual high, knowing that you had a hand in bringing them to such an important day in their life, and they may not realize it at that moment, but down the road, it's just such a big part of your life and your life with Jesus that it's incredible to be able to be part of that for them.
All right, well, I'm Julie Winter, and this is my husband, Aaron. We've been members of the parish for our whole lives, so it's kind of neat, like, seeing how many priests we've had throughout the time we've been members of the parish. One priest who really influenced us was Father Wilker. Growing up, there always seemed to be so much meaning to his sermons, and somehow you could relate it to your lives, and that's what we really liked about Father Wilker. And then we also became very close with Father Schmidtmeyer. He was a blast to have as a priest in the parish. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Father Schmidtmeyer, we both played church volleyball with him for a couple of years, and that was a lot of fun.
He kind of acted like a kid.
Yeah, yeah, he
it was
really
fun to
did.
have him on the team.
Yeah, he related really well to, you know, the younger, and he had us over for chili soup and to play Nintendo Wii one night after the game. That was
it was
like
he had us to the
2:30 in the
priest's house.
morning.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And that was a blast. And he had to do mass the next day, so I'm not sure how he did that, but that was a lot of fun. That was a good memory.
Yeah,
he married us.
Because I was going to say, because we became so close with him, he was the priest that we asked to have marry us, and then since then he's baptized both of our boys, and so he's has a
good influence on
positive
us.
impact on our lives. Yeah, and we hope to just continue to be a part of the parish and raise our kids in the parish and go from there. So.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Wenning. I'm 68 years old. I was born and raised here in Coldwater. There's been a lot of miles in between. With me this afternoon is my bride of 45 years, Mary Lou.
And I'm Mary Lou Wenning, was a Reichert from Casella, and as he said, we've been married for 44 years and have 3 children. So,
my first memory of being active in this Christian community is that of making my first communion back about 1957, I think. Father Yaus was our pastor at that time. He was a kindly, grandfatherly type person. And I think when he passed away, he had been pastor here for somewhere around 42 years. When Father Yaus passed away, I recall that he was laid out in the casket in his priestly vestments, and he was located in the center aisle of the parish where all of the parishioners could come in and pay their respects. We had a mass here for his requiem, and then he was transported, I believe, to Cincinnati where it was buried down there. One of my favorite vicars in the church here was an associate pastor, Father Gus Hanchek. Father Gus was ahead of his time. He made it a point of being very active in the community. He would go out fox hunting with my dad and my uncles. he would go to visit various members of the parish, and somewhat he invited himself out for supper because he wasn't real fond of the food that the young lady who was in charge of the parish cooked at the time.
And we have a picture here of Father Gus in the home, and he's enjoying his beer as he was sitting there after dinner.
Throughout the course of our time here, I've run into the situation where I had to bury my parents. The community was very supportive in showing us their care and their love. I will sit here before you today and tell you that my dad was the best friend I ever had, and I missed him severely to the point of depression. It was one particular Sunday where Father Ron Wilker gave a sermon in Mass, and I swear he directed that sermon specifically to me. He gave me a whole new perspective on death and afterlife. He related a story of how when he was in Parish in Dayton, that he ministered to a young lady who had terminal cancer. She was on the threshold of her life, but she realized that she only had a few weeks to live. Father Ron marveled at her character, at her demeanor, at how well accepting she was of her fate. He said that he asked her, he says, "How can you be so upbeat?" And he related what she said. "No one is ever dead so long as there is someone left who remembers. And when there's no one left who remembers, that's not all bad, because then we'll all be back together again." That small sentence, that small sermon, gave me a whole new appreciation of life and of death. And at some point in time, death is not something to be feared, but something to be accepted. Do you have anything you would care to add?
As you know, I joined the parish in 1972 after we were married. And so we had 3 children, 3 baptisms here in the church. We had Father Herb, who was a friend of Jack's from the seminary days, that actually baptized our children, our 3 children, and actually married our children as well. So that memory itself. Another memory is the wedding of our daughter. You know, naturally, only one daughter means you have one mass here at Coldwater, and it was a beautiful, beautiful day. And one of the things that really touched my heart was the fact that my daughter wanted to have her grandmother to be part of it, even though she had already passed at that point. And so she decided that she was going to wear her grandmother's dress. And I do have the picture of both my daughter and my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and the dress that she converted from Eldon and Rosie's wedding and then made it for hers. And the gal that redid the dress for her was Mary Honeyford, who's also from this parish and a very, very important part of this parish. I've continued to be busy with the parish. I did do some teaching of the CCD when the children were growing. Served on the parish council a couple times, and I have also become a communion distributor, both here at the church and at the hospital. And you know, it's just been a very, very strong part of our life. You know, I remember very distinctly when we came here to Coldwater as a couple, and we would always sit in the second pew. That's because his mom and dad sat in the second pew. And you know what? That's where we sit today. And if our children come home and they want to see where Grandma and Grandpa are, they know, go to the second pew.
Well, hello. My name is Ralph Sweeterman. I've been a member of Coldwater Parish since I was baptized here in 1951. And that leads me to one of my stories, because I didn't find out for 30 years that at my baptism, my godmother, who lived in Dayton, never made it here. They were caught in a vicious snowstorm, never got down here, so one of her neighbors took her place at my baptism and stood in for her. And again, I didn't find it out for 30 years, and I still kid my Aunt Helen, who's in a nursing home in Dayton now, about the baptism she never got to. Probably my second story I really like about the church here, and this is back in the early 60s. My second oldest sister got married, and that's the first wedding I really remember. I was 11 years old, I believe. And back in those days, the weddings were at 10 o'clock in the morning. This church was not air conditioned at that time. This was a middle of June day, hotter than all heck. And my sister fainted during the wedding ceremony. Now, they were kneeling at the time, so of course, the rest of the Mass, my sister got a good old folding chair to sit on so that she wouldn't relapse again. And I remember about the wedding after that at Green Acres in Salina, but the fact that she fainted during church during her wedding, I thought was a pretty good story. My last story, I'm going to tell a story about one of the nuns that taught me, and again, you know, public school, but the nuns had a big influence. In 5th grade, Sister Ambrosia, actually I have two little stories about her. The first is during winter recess, if it was too bad to go outside, the nuns taught us how to square dance in West Elementary gym. So as a 5th grade boy, learning to dance with girls was about as far away from what we wanted to do as possible. But there we were, Sister Ambrosia teaching us all how to do-si-do and Alaman left and everything else, which came in handy the rest of my life, but you never, you know, you never want to go back and say, well, we were taught by a nun. My other good story about Sister Ambrosia, my wife told me to keep this clean, but this is, you know, we always had recess right after lunch in those days. You know, we had almost a half hour to eat, and then we had a half hour's worth of recess. And as soon as we came in from recess, you know, everybody went to the bathroom because that was it for the afternoon. And apparently one day, and I was one of the boys, there's 3 other boys, we were in the restroom getting ready to go back into class. And the restrooms in West Elementary always had a block wall about 4 foot in, so you couldn't see into the restroom. And we all heard the door open, and Sister Ambrosia came in that little walkway there and told us we had 30 seconds to zip it up or she was going to come in and do it for us. At which point, 4 little boys zipped it up and got the heck back to the classroom. Those are probably my best stories about West Elementary and Holy Trinity Church that I remember to this day. And I hope you all enjoy them.
My name is Jerry Kenny. I've been a member of the parish for nearly 60 years. A lot of good memories. Was married here. My wife and I got married here. My kids all got married here. They were all baptized here. There's so many memories about Holy Trinity that I don't know where to start. But I think the first memory I ever really had was the first time I can remember coming to church. And I came with my grandma Shuck. Now, I don't know why I came with Grandma, but that particular day, and I was probably 4 or 5 years old, the first thing I remembered was how big it was. And then the next thing I recalled was I didn't understand a word they were saying, because this was like 1962 or 3, and they were speaking Latin or something, and it didn't make any sense. So I was being a good boy, because, you know, Grandma was Grandma, and I loved her and didn't want to make her mad, but after a while, I kind of lost my patience, and I can remember during I guess it was the consecration when the priest held up the host, I did the same thing he did. The next thing I remember was I got walloped in the back of the head with a songbook, and I was seeing stars, and when the concussion symptoms resided, I kind of realized then that this church stuff was pretty serious. You know, if Grandma would get mad at me, and I can still remember where it happened. We were sitting on the St. Joseph's side, and back in those days, there were small pews along the walls where you only could seat 2 or 3 people, and we were about halfway down, and to this day, when I get close to that area, I start twitching a little bit. But another thing I remember was going to school. It was called East Primary back then, but right across the walkway here. And in first grade, I had Sister Mary Rose Anthony. She was awesome. We received First Communion in first grade, and I can remember we would get these unconsecrated hosts to practice, so we could walk around. We'd get a host, and we'd walk around the room to make sure we could swallow them and not throw up and that kind of thing. And I can remember First Communion was awesome, and the kid in front of me did throw up after he got his communion. But we also did our first confession back in those days in first grade. And one thing I remember, once a month we would always go to church. We'd have religion class in the morning, and Sister was of course our teacher, but one time a month we'd go to church and we'd go to Mass, and then we'd go to confession. And I remember Sister telling us that there's certain things about confession, like if you ever hear somebody else giving a confession, if you ever hear them confessing their sins, that's a sin. And I think she even said, you're going to go to hell if that ever happens. And we can, we'd go to church, and back then the confessionals were along the side of the church, kind of up in the front. There weren't any wings on the church at the time, and there weren't any doors. They just had curtains. So, we were all in there, and, we have to sit there and pray and reflect and everything like they tell you to do. And I remember this one girl in my class, her name was Jenny, and she went into the confessional. She was one of the first kids, and we're all sitting there real pious with her hands just like this, and we're thinking about our sins and things. And Jenny goes in there, and all of a sudden we hear, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." We're all listening to Jenny's confession, and all the girls go like this, and all the guys are just listening, and we're just, adding that to our list of sins that we have to go in and confess when it's our turn, I guess. But that was a good memory. As I got older, I was able to serve, and when I was in 5th and 6th grade, we got to start serving, and that was really neat because you got to be right up there with the priest and be in on the action and understand a little more what was going on, and you got to know the priests a little bit too. Back in those days, we had, during the week, the grade school servers had to serve the masses in the morning, and we had 3 masses every morning, a 6 o'clock, a 7 o'clock, and a 7:55. And if you had to serve 6 o'clock mass, there were a couple things that were just constant. They were always going to be true. Number one was you had to get up early, and that was horrible, but you had to get there by 5:30 because you had to turn the lights on and light the candles and stuff. But the main thing was you always got to have Father Wardinger. Father Wardinger was an old guy that would come in from St. Charles, and he had a stroke a long time ago, and he was crippled. His one hand was kind of bent over and stuff, but he'd drive in from Carthagena, and you could always hear him coming because he drove a 4-speed manual Ford Falcon, a white Ford Falcon, and he'd always have it in first gear, and you could just hear him coming. And when he'd leave, he'd have it floored, but he never got out of first gear. So he'd always go about 30 miles an hour, but he'd always park right in front of church, and then he'd come in and get dressed, and we'd, do the Mass and stuff. So he was one constant. The other constant was there was always a gentleman in Mass. His name was Albert Bremlauge. Now, Albert was an older man, kind of tall, had a real deep voice. And when he said prayers, he was always a little bit slower than everyone else. And Father Wardinger, they kind of had an understanding. So when Albert, we started saying the Gloria or the Our Father, Albert was always a little bit behind. He finished a little behind everyone, and we just waited for him. And one time I was serving, and And, you know, we were at the Our Father, and everywhere we start, Father Wardinger starts, Our Father who art in heaven. And just like that, Albert starts in, Our Father who art in heaven. And then we go on, and we finish. Everyone's done. And this particular day, Albert was a little bit slower, and he's still at, give us this day our daily bread. And we're all done. And Father Wardinger, he never did this before, and he said, he stopped him. He said, okay, Albert, that'll be about enough now. He cut him off. We thought that was awesome. The last one I want to share is, it's another serving story. When you get a little bit up higher in the food chain, you get to serve weddings and things like that. And when I was in 7th grade, I think my brother Mike, he was in 8th grade at the time, we were asked to serve a wedding on a Saturday. And you know, when you're in 7th and 8th grade and it's summertime, really the last thing you want to do is serve a wedding. And at that time, this was about like 1970 or something like that, the church wasn't air conditioned, and it was July, and it was hotter than crap. And we got in there, and you know, we lit the candles and stuff. We thought, God, it is so hot. So we decided to take matters into our own hands. We took off our serving clothes, or, you know, we had, at that time, we used to wear this black thing, I think it was called a cassock or something, but it had about 100 buttons. It took 10 minutes to button it up, and it was hot. And then you had to put a white thing on that went down to about your knees. So it was really warm. So we took that stuff off, and then we took our shirts off, and we rolled our pants up over our knees. Then we put our stuff back on, our serving clothes back on. So it wasn't quite as bad. So we ended up serving the Mass, and it went fine and everything, and we stayed a little cooler than what we would have had we been fully dressed. But when we got done, we took off that white thing and we hung it up, and about anybody that ever served, when you had to take those things off, you just grab the top and you just fling it open like that, and the buttons go, and so we ripped those things open, and we're taking them off and we're hanging them up, and just then, Father Leibold walked in. Now, Father Leibold he was serious stuff, because he was a Monsignor, which was, I mean, just about a pope. So he came in and saw us standing there on our bare bellies and our knees, our legs rolled up, our pants rolled up to our knees, and we were looking like Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer, and he didn't like it. He gave us the business. He read us the riot act. Needless to say, my brother and I kept all of our clothes on from then on after we served. So lesson was learned, and you know, again, just a few of the memories. I could go on and on and on, but I'm really happy and proud to have been a member and been involved in all the things that go on here at Holy Trinity. So thank you for asking me.
I'm Mary Lou Hoyne, and as far as how long we've been a parishioner here, I really don't know, because we were in and out, moving back and forth through our life, but always seemed to get back to Coldwater. A few of my children did receive some of the sacraments here, but most of them, it was in different parishes. And I know I'm supposed to remember things about Holy Trinity. I do remember a lot of occasions that we had, but I think the thing that amazed me most when we moved back here for good was the fact the way Holy Trinity had grown, not only in size, but in their faith and the family that was shown through the parish when we moved. It was amazing to see all the different things that you could do to help your parish and to help this foundation that was founded 150 years ago. You can't visualize what these people went through to start this foundation for us, and to me, to see how it has grown here at Holy Trinity. I am just amazed, and I am so thankful for this. I guess the main thing that I found was all the things that you could do and adjust yourself and be a part of this beautiful family was to get involved. There are just so many different organizations here that can help you. And we all know we need family. Family is the most important part to us. And I think that's why Holy Trinity is so special to me. As everyone in Coldwater knows, it's all go Cavs, go Cavs. Well, let's go Holy Trinity and keep this foundation going for eternity.